Hi everyone and welcome to Woodworking with 5 Tools. Today I'm going to show you how to build these beautiful shelves. And it's all about this joint that you can see right here. And with this joint you can build any size, any length, any height with 3, 4, 5 layers. It's completely up to you. First of all, I have to say sorry for the title of this video because it's big, of course, and I don't like people and YouTubers who are telling you that you have to watch their videos and then you will get healthy, beautiful, wealthy, whatever. Most of the time it's just bullshit, but this time it's my honest opinion. And if you're a professional and you don't agree with me, please let me know. So write in the comments, write me an email, because I think that this shelf that you see right here in front of you, if you would go to your local woodworker and you would ask him, hey, I want a shelf, I want a clean design, it has to be solid oak, and it should be like middle range price, not so high. Then I think your woodworker will come up or could come up with something like this and you should be 100% happy. Because it's a clean design, it's a modern design, and it's solid oak, and it looks beautiful. And I think when you're doing this well, like I hopefully can teach you today, and a professional comes by who didn't watch this video, he will not believe you that you did this shelf. Okay? So I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's go. Let's talk about the materials that we need. First of all, we are starting with these 3 wood boards. This is solid oak. I got them from a thing called Baumarkt. In Germany you have a thing called Baumarkt, and there you can get some solid wood, not everything. Normally you have to go to another wood dealer, but this time for this solid oak you can go to the Baumarkt. In English it's called hardware store, I guess. And if you're pretty smart, you can let them cut there. Most of the time it doesn't even cost money. If you're buying the wood, you can also cut them into pieces, because these 3 have to be exactly the same size. This is really important because we are building a shoe shelf, for me actually, and they have to be the same size. Then the second thing is these legs. I chose them in 38 to 38 millimeters. You can do any size you want, but these 4 have to be the same size, exactly the same size. So these are really like 3.8 centimeters each. Then we're building a template. For this template we need 2 MDF boards, we need 2 offcuts, which shouldn't be bigger than these legs, so a maximum of 38 millimeters to 38 millimeters, and we need some screws for the template. The template actually will be the biggest part of this video, because if this template is once built and nice built, then you can build these shelves. If this is cotton and this is the same size, you can build them in half an hour or an hour and you're finished. So this is going to be a big part. And now we need to talk about the tools that we need. First of all, a drill. This is only needed for the template. Pretty easy. Cordless screwdriver, drill, whatever you have laying around. Router, as in every build, it's a beautiful tool, and without this router, this whole thing is not possible. So we really need this router. The third tool is the Mitersaw. You can also do what we're doing today only with the router or with a circular saw or a table saw. But I like to choose this Mitersaw because for me it's the best choice. I'm going to show you what is important. You need to choose the depth. So this time you're cutting all through the material, as you can see. But here, when you're pulling this, you can choose the depth that you want to cut. So now it's around 2 centimeters, which are left between the blade and the Mitersaw itself. So you have 2 centimeters left in the material, and this is important for the joint that we're doing today. Okay? First stage of our build is building the template, which is maybe the most complicated part, but I think I can be as clear as possible. We want to build something like this. Looks funny, but it is a damn great tool. And we're going to use this after we have cut out some of the material with the Mitersaw. We put this on here, and then we are able, with the router bit and the copying, to take the same material away in every single layer or stage of our shelf. This is what we're trying to achieve. How you're going to build this? It is actually pretty simple. We just need, as I said, these 2 square woods, and we need these 2 sheets of MDF. I personally have a router with a copy ring which is 24 millimeters, and I have a router bit which is 14 millimeters. That means I have 10 millimeters between the router bit and the copy ring, and I need to keep these 10 millimeters in mind. This is the most important measurement for our template. For you it can be 8, it can be 6, 7 or 12. I just find myself these 2 spaces. One is 4 millimeters, one is 6 millimeters. In total these are 10, exactly the size that I need, and I put them in here on each side. If you don't have these spaces laying around, you can also use normal drill bits. Okay, this is just a little tip for you. If you don't have these spaces, you can use a drill bit in 12 millimeters, 10 millimeters, 8 millimeters, whatever. I have these spacers laying around, so I use them, and now I use a normal offcut of these wood boards, which is 18 millimeters in depth, like the same depth that my wood boards are, and I also put it in between here. And now I'm sure that I have the depth of my wood boards plus the distance between the router bit and the copy ring. This is important. I'm just using a normal MDF board that everything is square, because this will help me afterwards. This is also square, perfect. And now I use 2 of these clamps just to push these spaces a little bit together, because I'm not doing this for the first time. I know that these spaces, you have to push them a little bit together, that they are exactly 10 millimeters. This is why I'm doing this. So like this. And then just check if the lineup is perfect. That's perfect. Use 2 clamps. First clamp here. Second clamp right here. And now I can remove this 1 clamp. I use my cordless screwdriver, some normal screws which you have laying around. And the head of the screw has to be in the material, like this. Okay, perfect. Now I'm turning this thing and doing the same thing on the other side. Perfect. Heads are completely in these MDF boards, which is perfect. I'm removing the clamps. Now I can get rid of this. And this is what it looks like. Okay, perfect. This is done. Now we need to cut, or later we will cut out these small gaps with the Mitersaw, like we did in this template, which you see over here. And then the template is finished. Okay, let's go on. Next stage of our build is taping these 4 legs together. So before we do anything, before we cut them into length, before we do the holes with the router, we are taping them together, and they will stay like this for literally the whole build. So I like to use 2 clamps. You don't have to do this, but for me it's just safer that they are sticking together. Then you're using some normal tape and tape them together. If you're really smart, you can try to make the tape at the point where you cut them with the Mitersaw. So the first stage will be cutting them into length. Our end size should be around 76 centimeters, 76.6. So what I'm doing, I make the first cut around 2 centimeters, like this, and the second cut around here. But as I did the first cut, I'm gonna measure again. But this is just my reference for the tape where I need to put it, that these both cuts are like really, really clean. So please at least use 3 of these tapes. I like to use 4, but never less than 3. Let's make the cut with the Mitersaw. After we cut them into length, we need to put some marks where we want to put the boards, like the layers of our shelf itself. 1, 2, 3, wherever you want. So I made myself some drawings, as you can see here. So I just need to look at that, at this. And my first board should be at 2.0 centimeters. So after 2 centimeters. So this is where I make my first mark, as you can see right here, at 20 millimeters. Then I need these 18 millimeters. That means at 38. And what I'm now doing, I look at this template that I have because it will go on here. And now it's difficult to see where the middle is. So what I do, I measure my template itself. This one is 28 millimeters. So I'm going for 26, so that I see 1 millimeter behind the template, the line, and I can easily put it right into the middle, okay? And I'm doing this with all the layers and with all the boards right here, okay? I'm finished with the drawings, as you can see, first board, second board, third board. I want to go 1.8 centimeters into the wood. You can choose whatever size you have, what you want. I chose 18 millimeters. That means with the Mitersaw, I'm going 17 millimeters into the wood, so that the last millimeter is taken away by the router. And I'm also not going to these 18 millimeters marks. I'm finishing my cuts with the Mitersaw a little bit before these marks, so that the last millimeter I'm gonna take away with the router, okay? And I use this between my Mitersaw and the wood which I'm cutting, because, as you can see in this offcut, the Mitersaw blade is round, of course. If you would put it directly here, you wouldn't cut through all of the material, as you can see here. For that reason, I'm just putting this in between, then I'm 100% sure that I'm cutting through all the wood. And you should do a test piece, okay? So do some testing. As you can see, I also did this here, just to be sure that it's only 17 millimeters into the material, okay? Let's do this. As I told you, you can also do it with the circular saw or the table saw. I'm shortly going to explain you how you would do it with a circular saw, because if you don't have this miter saw, of course you have to take it. You just use a square like this, put this 1.7 centimeters that we want to go into the wood, into your miter saw. Like the depth of your miter saw is then at 1.7, something around this. For this example, I'm putting it to 0. And then you make multiple cuts. As you can see here, this is the 0 where your first cut is going to be. And you're just going one time, then you're moving your square a little bit, second time, third time, fourth time. This is how you can do it also with this circular saw. But if you have a miter saw, I would highly recommend to use this miter saw, because it's safer and the end product will be better. Okay, so I'm going to make the last cut with the miter saw, and then we will go on with the routering process. We're finished with the miter saw process. So as you can see, all these three gaps. And it is of course important to put these gaps also in your template. So don't forget this. I like to make them a little bit deeper, so not 1.8, around 1.9 or 2 centimeters, that I'm sure that I'm not hitting. And I'm doing also a little bit wider, so not 18 millimeters like my oak board, but 20 millimeters or something like this. Okay, so now I'm putting this thing on here, for example, or here. Please mount them down with at least 2 of these clamps. One clamp is not enough. 2 of these. Here it is pretty easy because you can do one here and one here. On the end of the legs, it's not so easy. So I'm finding my reference line, as you can see right here. 26 millimeters. And in this case, I use one small clamp right here. Be sure that it's like square, and I'm using a second clamp a little bit further into the template, like this. Okay. Now I need to make the setting in my router. I put it in, and I'm finding one side where the material is not cutting out, and I'm putting it into 0, so like this. Now I'm putting it into 0. As you can see, this is 0, and now I want to do 18 millimeters. Something around here. Okay? And because I did these 17 millimeters in depth with the miter saw, and I have just 1 millimeter left on each side, I can do it in one path. Perfect. So there are 2 tricks if your joint is a little bit too big or a little bit too small. Like when you're trying, if it's fitting and you're putting it in, for me this is perfect because it's sticking really, really good. But if it's a little bit too big, you can adjust your template by just putting some tape on each side. So for example like this. So one tape on each side, and then you have like a little bit smaller gap in between these two MDF boards, and this will make a difference. The other trick is if your joint is a little bit too thin or too, what is it called? Tight. Too tight. If your joint is a little bit too tight, then you can just take a sander and sand off a little bit of your oak board. And then it will fit perfectly. And nobody will recognize that you've just like with an 80 grit or 60 grit sandpaper and the sander, nobody will see that you actually did this for the joint. But for me it's perfect. I'm gonna get rid of these tapes and then we're gonna do a try fitting. Okay? The try fitting starts, and I realized that the first joint, as you can see here, is a little bit too tight. So it's not really getting in. Sometimes, of course, these oak boards are a little bit thinner, a little bit thicker, and even if it's 1/10 of a millimeter, you will recognize the difference. So what I do, I turn this board around, and on the bottom of this board, I'm using a sander with 80 grit and just sand it like for 10 seconds, and then the fit will be perfect. Okay, we will do this. Before we do the try fitting, I marked myself the spots where the legs are. As you can see here. And you might asking yourself, hey, why you're marking the spots? I mean, these pencil marks, you will see them afterwards. No, you won't, because I did 1 millimeter less than the leg itself. You can stay here and you will see that when I'm putting this leg in, all the marks are completely gone. And when I'm pulling it a little bit, you see that it's 1 millimeter less than the leg itself. That helps me also for the oiling process, because I want to oil this whole thing before I glue it together. When you're not new to woodworking, you know that it's much better to oil it before you glue it together. I also want to do it because you won't see the marks of the wood glue and stuff. So what I do, I'm pretty lucky because I have a 3.7 millimeter tape. You can also use 2 tapes if it's not exactly the same size. But I start my way from the mark, which you can see here. And now I'm turning this whole thing around. As you can see here. Like this. And now I use a knife and I go like on this mark that I'm still seeing. I'm cutting the tape off. And this is not bad because the marks of the knife you won't see because there is the leg. So, something like this. And this is now prepared for the oiling process. Because I can't oil this thing now, because it will take some days, let it dry, I prepared myself a second shelf, which I'm going to show you now. It is this one where you can see how it looks when everything is finished. You can see here are the tapes where there is no oil, and now we can do with these both things the dry fitting. Starting with the dry fitting. double check if I have these 2 centimeters, as you can see here. This is perfect, and here you can see it's a little bit too much because you can still see the mark. So I'm putting it a little bit in this direction. And this also helps me for the perfect glue up, that everything is where it should be. This is super nice, 2 centimeters. This is also exactly 2 centimeters. And I'm doing this also on the back. And nice. Okay. This is perfect. What I'm now doing is important. I mean, you can try to do the glue up by yourself, 100%. But for I'm doing this not the first time, I try to give you some advice how you can, in my eyes, do it in a pretty smooth way. Because a glue up is always a little bit risky. So what I'm doing, I'm clamping this together. So now everything is mounted down, and I'm turning this whole thing in this direction, like this. So you can see. Now I use the first clamp right here, and I use the second clamp right here. Okay, now I can remove the other 2 clamps. And I'm 100% sure when you glue up that these 2 legs are on the perfectly right position. And this is pretty important for the glue up because I can get rid of these and put into every leg a little bit glue, and then just put it in and mount these other 2 clamps on, and everything is nice. For I know that this joint is pretty strong, I don't need that much glue. If you want, you can put a lot of glue in. I personally like, if you did everything right and your joint is good, then you can just put a little bit on the bottom and a little bit here, a little bit here, maybe a little bit more, but not so much. Like this and like this. As I said, a little bit on the bottom. And this should be enough. And I'm doing this all around with all the 4 legs. Perfect. This aside. I use my first board. I'll take my first board. And now it is important, as you can see, that I look at these marks because I don't want the wood glue to get anywhere else. So, like this. Second board. Super nice. Leg. This is nice. This is also nice. This is also nice. 2 centimeters, perfect. And then I use these 2 clamps, and as I did for the dry fitting, just putting them on. And not too much strength, a little bit. Not too much power, just a little bit. Now you can see all the wood glue coming out. nice. So I get rid of these 2 clamps. And for every glue up, people, it is super important that your table, your shelf, your chair, whatever, stands on his or its 4 legs. This is pretty important. And I'm getting rid of this. As you can see, even though I had just a small amount of wood glue, it is still some squeeze out. For the glue up, of course, you can take 4 of these clamps. 1, 2, 3, 4. As a professional, I would do this, but we have such a strong joint, 2 of these clamps would also be enough. And I know that most of you maybe don't have 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 clamps, and if you do multiple layers, it's also enough to just put it in between. You can also, if you have like wider shelves, I mean this is 30 centimeters wide, but for a kitchen you can also do 60, 70 centimeters, and you don't have these much clamps or these big lamps or long clamps, you can also use something like this. Just put it around, it's a loading strap, mount it down, and it will do the same thing like you're doing it with this clamp right here. For today, we're done. We will meet each other in my office in a couple of days when I'm finished with the shoe shelf. You will see the finished product. This will also go into my office with some LED strips, the shoe shelf. I think it will look pretty cool. So see you in a couple of days. Till then, bye-bye. Welcome back, everyone. Here we are in my office, and you can see the beautiful outcome of this shoe shelf. We have some LED stripes on the bottom of every board. Actually, LED stripes in solid wood is not so easy, I have to be honest, but we will have some projects in the future, because in this shoe shelf it really was easy because you see nothing. Like, we have some aluminum panels, then we have the cable which goes into this leg, and then we have the cable duct, there are some other cables, and then we have a cable duct. So it's not so easy to install LEDs in solid oak. But we did, and it came out beautiful, and in the future projects we will have more LED stripes and panels. So if you're sticking to this channel, we have 2 projects coming up where we talk a lot about LEDs and how you can install them in a furniture like this. But for now, we're finished, and you see that there are some shoes. The reason for that is that I was a shoe seller. Before I became a woodworker, I was a shoe seller for 4 years. Why? Because I loved shoes, even though before I became a shoe seller, so I have some of them, and I work for 2 different brands. But because maybe some of you want to hear what I have to say about shoes and about whatever, my personal opinion about shoes, we make another video, which you can head to afterwards, where in a woodworking vlog where I'm speaking a little bit about some of these shoes, because some of them have like a personal meaning, and some of them I like, and some of them I think is a good choice or a bad choice, whatever. So if you are interested in my personal opinion about shoes, then please head to the video, because I know that it's a little bit hard to get such straight legs from somewhere else. For that reason, we're sending it to you. The boards are not so hard to get in Germany, but for these legs, I know that it's not so easy to get such a straight version of wood. So we're selling it to you. But for now, that's it. I hope you had fun. I hope you've learned something, and I hope you can see the energy. And yeah, we are really looking forward to the next projects. They are damn beautiful, so please stick to the channel. And we will see you in the future on projects like this. So stay tuned, keep on woodworking. See you next time. Bye.